Hello, everybody. How are we all doing? I'm hoping we're quite good. We've got some various bits and bobs to talk about today, don't we? And I covered this one a little bit earlier when I was doing the sort of leaked news of the 50-page investor document thing that I thought was of relative interest and sort of needed to be discussed. However, I thought I'd take a little bit of a deeper dive into the youth strategy side of things because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff within the youth strategy part of it. And a lot of people will have sort of missed that because they'll instead be paying attention to we'll have this much to spend in this year, this much in this year, this much in this year, etc., etc. But I think the long-term future of a football club kind of sits on the way that it uses its youth. And that is kind of what I'm going to be taking a little bit of a deep dive into in the stream today. But before I dive into everything, if you haven't yet, please subscribe or like the stream or be a channel member if you want as well. You get a bunch of videos early and everything like that. Anyway, I'm going to dive fully into everything. And I'm going to start with what was roughly set out to be the youth strategy for the coming years, which I think is something that is quite good. Keep in mind, this is a document that was leaked, that was sent out to investors, that was leaked to Matt Slater, I believe, who is at The Athletic, and also to 442, I believe. Matt Slater, as far as football journalists go, is one of the most on-point people you can possibly expect to sort of discuss things. Hello, Lord Shiogarth. He is the kind of guy that won't typically take bullshit. He was the guy that was immediately calling out Qatar on the human rights issues when it came to the World Cup. He was the guy that was calling out Saudi Arabia when it came to the ownership stuff, at least with Newcastle. He's the guy that calls out the bad things, and if a document is leaked to him, you can assume that the document was leaked to him not directly by the club, because again, he would call that out. Dealing with crappy ownership is ultimately what that guy does. So I think we kind of roll with it and we trust this entire thing. On that, Sophie, I'm not going to get into that because I'm well aware of what political discussion can tend to do to a YouTube video and channel. I'm just going to leave it at the simple conversation of you can disagree with someone all you like, but political violence is never warranted. That's where I'm going to leave that, rather than expanding into what could easily become a slippery slope, because we all know what YouTube comment sections can turn into sometimes. Anyway, talking the youth strategy stuff. So, head over to monitor 2, because this is kind of what matters in terms of long-term football club growth. A football club doesn't really do especially well when it's kind of not relying on a youth system. So Barcelona do incredibly well because they've got La Masia. Manchester United irritatingly keep at least sticking around in the top-ish echelons of football because they bring a decent number of players through Carrington. Manchester City right now are able to continue dealing with FFP, PSR stuff because they do ultimately what we're going to look into when it comes to the youth strategy here, which is a multi-step thing. And I've forgotten the name of the steps, but I'm going to have a rough idea of it, so I'm going to run through it very, very quickly. First up, you have the academy itself, which is going to go through a few little adjustments. So, the academy, although currently based in Leeds City Centre, not Leeds City Centre, at Thorpe Arch, is going to change about a little bit to become the City Centre based one. I believe it was mentioned that it'd have something along the lines of £2 million of investment. There was the thing with the Spanish government as well. That's a very, very good point. Yeah. And the idea being that that would increases accessibility. Said investment here is also going to go in the general direction of making sure that young players that are perhaps from not the best of backgrounds are able to go wherever they need to. You're not going to end up paying kit costs, transport costs. If there is a genuine high quality player, they will be able to show that they have that genuine quality, which is ultimately what we all want to see, right? We all want to see the best players come through the academy, and we don't want cost to be what stops us getting the best of footballers, without a doubt. So from this big situation over here, let's go to tools, let's go to draw, let's get me a pen. Let's get me a bigger pen. A bigger pen. There we go. And that pushes you out into having youth sides, which is going to cover all sorts of age ranges. It'll cover everything from, like, I think professional football clubs pick up players from like under 7s sort of age, all the way up until under 21s senior football, which is absolutely fantastic. We didn't have a ton of information on how exactly that is going to change things, but we did have a couple of bits. Primarily, there are going to be 2 funds set up that I'm going to call the Acquisition Fund and the Discovery Fund. The Discovery Fund is in the region of £100,000 per year, which is a pretty decent chunk of change, especially when you consider what it's going to do. So the Discovery Fund, its entire function is to effectively fund the scouting of young players, not only in Leeds, but in surrounding areas. So specifically, if I just copy you again, you've got the Leeds Youth setup over here. And the idea isn't to just pick up players from within Leeds. The idea is to go, okay, so who do you have in Hull? Who do you have at Sheffield United? Who have you got at Sheffield Wednesday? Who have you got over in the West at Bradford? Or at Huddersfield? Because whilst Leeds have a pretty damn good regional scouting network, they keep advertising for various sort of, like, do you want to be a football scout at a youth level across Yorkshire? Let us know. It's a good thing that we have a lot of information, but you're not going to catch everyone. Someone is going to slip through the net. So the idea is the Discovery Fund that is here finds the players at Hull, at Sheffield United, at Sheffield Wednesday, at Huddersfield, at Bradford, etc. But it's not just a case of find these players. It's a case of, okay, this is where the Acquisition Fund comes in. Because the Acquisition Fund ain't just 100k a year. £500,000 every single year is being put into that Acquisition Fund, which I think is very, very good, because it means that the players that you see at Hull get pulled into the Leeds Youth setup. If there is a very, very good youth centre-back that is at Hull, and we are missing centre-backs in a certain sort of age range, brilliant. You can fix that problem now. And from Sheffield United, and from Sheffield Wednesday, and from Huddersfield, and from Bradford. Because the issue that we're having on a sort of national level at the moment, and it's an issue that we have dealt with recently, with the case of Finley Gorman, is, and I'm going to tab across a little bit, the City Youth setup. Effectively, players from Leeds, players from Villa, players from Scum, players from Burnley, players from, let's pick somewhere else, West Ham, are all getting plucked up by this big sort of conglomerate City Football Group and dragged into their youth setup, which is why their youth setup looks like it produces so many good players constantly. Everyone looks at Manchester City and goes, damn, they must have a really, really good sort of like talent scouting academy in the local area. That's not true, because in the coming years you're going to see Finley Gorman, because Finley Gorman is a fucking good player. But Finley Gorman was sold by Leeds United to Manchester City because they are a financial beast at the moment, which is something that we can't hugely compete with, which is a little bit of an issue. The idea, as far as I'm able to read it at the very least, is to, because we know we can't compete with Man City when it comes to attracting players from London, from the southwest, from Scotland, from all over the shop. Instead, you look at a slightly smaller degree. You look at a regional level. You look at the Bradford, the Hull, the Sheffield United, the Sheffield Wednesday. But importantly, you look a little bit beyond that as well. Because this summer, we signed a defender from Liverpool. I'm going to make that sort of blue, which is outside of that local area, but is still a very, very talented footballer, because let's be honest, you don't get in the Liverpool Academy in the first place if you're not a good player. And that means that the discovery pot is... Oh, which blue is it? Is it that blue? Yeah. The discovery pot guides the acquisitions pot, which pushes players into the youth sides, which is really, really important. Because if you don't have decent players in your youth sides, then your football club is effectively nothing. Because in the coming years, PSR or whatever is replacing it, I think it's the weird revenue turnover-y percentage thing, is going to become more important than ever. And beyond that, you get to the next stage of the strategy, which I'll be using some of the numbers that the club listed here. But this is where you get the players that feed into the senior squad. And some examples of that, recent years, you are looking at, right now, Harry Gray, who hasn't pushed through yet, but I think likely will. You're looking at Archie Gray, you're looking at Somerville, you're looking at Strouk, you're looking at, to an extent, Gelhardt, who was from a similar sort of system to this. You're looking at sort of Greenwood. And whilst these guys didn't get a lot of minutes, they were still around and about. But they don't just contribute to the squad itself. Because a lot of people will look at the squad itself and they will go, okay, I mean, there's not many youth players in there. Like Dr. Cox has mentioned here in the chat. Thank you very much, Dr. Cox. Also, let's maybe not be, as I've previously mentioned, discussing any of the Kirk stuff in either direction, because this is a football-y stream. I'm not going to dive into that right now. Thank you. I've had enough of that already when I was scrolling through Twitter and with zero warning, I saw a man get shot in the neck. So if we could just avoid all of that, that'd be lovely, thank you. But it's not just the players that make it into your senior squad and they stick around in the senior squad. So rather than just all of these going immediately in, some of these players will leave because that is the nature of football. You'll have some players that depart. And this is using the numbers that came out of Leeds United's sort of pitch deck thing that is quite important. And we will take an assumption that you've got a £22 million player. £22 million sale, right. So, according to the maths, this splits into operational cost and into profit. So if I go to the profit point, I'll cover that in a moment, and then I will go over to the operational point. Operationally, the sale of a single £22 million player will do both 4 years of academy operations, and simultaneously, hang on, I've had a little bit of a mouse problem. There we go, that's a little bit better. It will pump you out with £30 million of profit, which is pretty damn good. So not only is it a situation that sort of provides you with decent players, in the case of Harry, in the case of Archie, in the case of Somerville, Strout, Gelhardt, Greenwood, etc., 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 it gives you this little bit of money, which then cycles back into the senior squad, so you can reinvest in other players, which is quite important, I would say, for a football club. But at this stage, it starts to effectively completely pay for itself. So it's one of those where if you put a decent amount of cash in at the start, which is that small little bit of investment, it's the making sure that young players are able to actually attend like training sessions and become a part of the academy and all that kind of stuff. And then it turns into the youth sides, which you use the discovery, the acquisition, fantastic. And then it turns into the senior squad, sales, etc. The moment you make a sale, and the club has said that you are looking at probably one youth sale every 2 years, which is a rate that I am absolutely certain that we can hit, then it's all good. So I'm going to use the Orta conversation as an example, right? Listing the Orta youth lads is what I'm going to call it. You've got Stroke, you've got Somerville, you've got Gelhart, you've got Greenwood, JB. Come on, brain. Who else? I suppose Amari Miller's on the list. Gonna take a quick look at transfer marks actually, just to make sure that I've got the full list, and we can sort of run through everything. You know, we'll make sure that everything adds up. We're gonna do the maths. We like to do the maths around these parts. We like to make sure that our information is on point. We go to Leeds United and take a look at that. So Stroke I knew was free. So Stroke's a freebie. In fact, I'm going to pin that to the left, all of that to the left, thank you very much. Without doing that. No, yeah, there we go. Somerville was 1 million. Gelhart was 1 million. Greenwood was approximately the same. JB was 5. Or 4, I don't know, I'll stick with 5. Apparently Amari Miller was 2 or 3, so I'll go 2.5. Anyone else I'm missing? Drama. I am missing Cody Drama, aren't I? How much was Cody Drama? Can't quite remember. But we'll have to find out. Melly was 5. Was Melly strictly a youth signing because he was signed for the first team squad? That's the main point I'm having, because he wasn't signed to be part of like the youth setup. He was signed to just go in. 400k for Drama. Cool. That'd be so much easier if I just called it 0.4, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that'd be vastly easier. Right, who else? I'm going to scroll through incoming players for a minute. We'll say that Nonso's on the list. I think Nonso being on the list is a bit of a stretch, but we can put him on there. The fact that Nonso was less than JB is wild to me. Clarkson is 2.4. Joffrey was 1. Melier was about 5. McCarron was 290k. Nice. Well, in fact, in pounds it was 250, so I'll go with pounds because that's what we're sticking with, I think. Paveda was 3, which was a pretty fucking good get, let's be fair. And we'll go back as far as Bogush, who was 0.1. In fact, we'll round you up to 0.3, so I've got fewer significant figures to deal with. So, in terms of total cost here, I'm going to do some very quick maths. Give me 1 second. Pounds XX million. 1, 2, 3, 8, 10.5, 10.9, 16.4, no, 15.4, sorry. 17.8. Add these two, it is 18.2. 18.2 million pounds is what we spent. Oh, I forgot Mateo Joseph. Yeah. Joseph was another 1, right? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm going to stick with these for now. Leif Davis, by the way, I would list, but we don't know what his fee was from Morecambe's under 18s, which is a little bit of an issue. And then you have a look at the players that went out, right? So academy players that left. You've got Greenwood was, what was he, about 4-ish? Something like that. Gelhart's gone out on loan, that's fine. Darko JB went on a free, but it's sort of free, but with the sell on, which I think is a sort of important thing to note. Other youth players that left include Somerville, which was, I believe, 25 million plus add-ons, which would make it 34. You've got Gray, who was about 40. You've got Cresswell, who admittedly went for probably less than he should have, which was 4. Poveda went on a free, which, I mean, fair enough. Didn't really do tons. Then again, we got him for free, so it's fine. Klaassen and Drame went for frees. Gelhardt still on loan. Gelder went for 1.5. Bogusz went for 1. I don't know, we managed to sell Bogusz for a profit. That's kind of impressive. Davis went for 1.2, but I didn't have his in, so I'm not going to have his out. I'm going to let it be a little bit of a fair, like, balanced deal kind of thing. Oh, Barry Douglas, I forgot you existed, mate. And I've been nice enough to myself to go back as far as Jan Poveda in terms of arrivals, but I'm not going to include Jack Clark as a departure. That feels like that's cheating. But this is just with these, which is, you know, there's a decent number of failures in there. Poveda on a free, Klaassen on a free, Drame on a free, JB on a free with the sell on. Not brilliant, is it? But even then, that adds up to 429. 69, funny number. 73, 74.5, 75.5. Rising to 84.5 because of add-ons. So if you're having a look at that, you might look at that and go, that's not very good, because not many of those players ended up in our first team in the Premier League. Doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, oh, why have I given myself even more maths to do? 75.5 minus 18. 65.5, 57.5, 57.2. So that is a cheeky little £57.2 million profit. And that is the kind of money that pays for the academy again, which 9 million paid for 4 years of operation. So that would be 26 years of the academy that pays for, or it pays for 4 years plus about £48 million of profit. That's pretty damn good. And I'm sure there's players that I've missed. I know that you're shouting them in the chat. I'll be honest, I can't be bothered working through every single one of them. But they ain't gonna make this number anywhere near this number. And that's a sign of just how important the youth system can be at any given club. Because even if things go wrong this season and we end up having to sell Harry, he's not going to go cheap. He's going to be a player that when he goes for a significant sum of money. And a sum of money that allows this cycle to continue, and it means that we get better youth players through and we can reinvest in the senior squad with any remaining profit. And the fact that they've mentioned you get profit plus operationals covered, that's fantastic. Because it means that they are looking to do both sides of it. They are looking to invest in that youth side. And even better than that, this 13 million doesn't just go up here to the senior squad. If you see a talent that is a genuinely ridiculously good footballer, if it will let me do a little bit of clicky, where's the button gone? There's the button gone. This also branches off into here, and it means that if there's a genuine, really, really good talent that is 3 million quid at the age of 16, but looks like they will be an absolute world beater, then you can spend that because you've made sure that you've profited. And yes, this depends on the success of the academy, but with good reason, because it depends on the success of the academy whilst the academy is in a position to succeed. Because at the end of the day, it's a long-running strategy that doesn't just rely on our own academy up here. It means that for it to have failed, because of the way we've worked it, the entire region of Yorkshire and the Humber will have had to have produced no good footballers for an extended period of time. And the odds of that being the case are 0 to none. We are absolutely heading in the right direction at the moment, and I think a strategy like this can only benefit the football club. And whilst I did have a little bit of a sort of loose mention of this bit when I did my stream earlier on, I thought going into a bit more detail on it, discussing exactly how this thing would work and how it would be basically a sort of like money generator for the club. Having that bit of discussion, very, very beneficial, because that means that we can sort of cover all sorts of stuff, and it's nice. Getting 2 big money players from our youth squads is pretty good going for any club. That's true, but the thing is, it doesn't even need to be like... That was a misclick. It doesn't even need to be 2 sort of big money players in a tight span of time. So if I come over here, bring that back, and I go Bosch, 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 Bosch. We'll do 2 more. We'll do Bosch, and we'll do... There we go. Bosch. So. If you're running 2 decent money sales, sorry, 1 decent money sale every 2 years. Well, in 2024, 2024? Yeah, 2024. In fact, I'm going to sort out my entire timeline before I get into it. This is such a well-spaced out timeline. I'm so proud of this. I really didn't need to go up to 2030, did I? No, but I have done. So we're going to keep rolling with it. So in 2024, everyone's like, oh no, it's a big shame we've had to sell 2 really good players. The thing is, Somerville and Gray, they don't just cover this year, because you've said we want 1 every 2 years. So therefore, 2025 doesn't matter too much. In fact, I'll put the odd years down, because the odd years don't need a player, because you said 1 every 2 years. Yeah, the short block's a leap year, that's what we'll do. No smoke without fire. We're not talking about that subject at the moment, because I personally cannot be like, no, I'm not really in the space to have that conversation, but whatever. But that meant that obviously we wouldn't need to do anything this summer anyway, but it removes the importance of 2026, because during this summer we did 2 of those sales that were of the value that we need. But even so, in 2026, if things go wrong, and there is a chance that things do go wrong, I doubt they will, but there is a chance, we've got another Gray. But in theory, we're sorted for 2026 as well, because Somerville and Archie cover both of these. So We only need to think, do we have someone from the academy to sell by 2028? And at the same time, you can do sales from absolutely anywhere else as well throughout the rest of the squad. And it's like Phil's just put in that comment there. Again, we're not doing that conversation, the unambiguous. I have, after being somewhat traumatized by a video of events on Twitter, thank you, Elon, for removing the idea of content warnings. I'm not going into any of that bollocks. Not to call the situation bollocks. You know what I mean. Don't deliberately misinterpret that, because I know some people will want to. But yeah, it's what Phil said here. A good youth setup absolutely just feeds itself, because good setups mean you attract more good players, which means that you sell players for more money, which means that you're able to attract more good players by investing in the facilities. But beyond the facilities, you can use fees to pay other clubs for players, which then improves the level at the academy, which then means that you sell the next player for a little bit more. And it's this ongoing spiral that it doesn't just sort of spin in place, because that wouldn't help anyone, but it's a spiral that as it goes up, and it goes up, and it goes up, and it goes up. And at the end of the day, you're left at the top of football. And that's the dream. So whilst, and I know that it's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, there we go. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek title to say genius Leeds are setting up to dominate the future of football. It is a little bit, like, that's not going to 100% happen. But having this plan in place means that everything is where it needs to be for those steps to a more comfortable position to happen. And for me, that's what matters most. The future of Leeds United is in a good position at the moment, and this is true. It does sound good in theory, and you don't have any guarantees that that will happen in practice. But when you're in a position where all you've got is theory, like, there's no guarantee in any world that anything in terms of footballing strategy will work. There's, like, you can do whatever you like. There's no certainty that anything will land. But for me, the idea that we are basing what we are doing on sound theory and bits of maths and using examples from other clubs that have done so successfully is so much better than we had under the previous ownership, that I'm more than happy to say, the theory's good, let's make sure that it happens in practice. And that's what we're doing at the moment, and that's why I am very, very happy with the youth strategy at the minute, and I'm hoping that things keep pushing in that general direction. But that was the yes, Vardy went to Cremonese. He is very much unsignable at the minute. Sorry to say that, Sly. But that is roughly the gist of this specific stream. I'm going to nip off in a minute because I've got a video to record for the morning. I would do a stream in the morning, but I have various tasks to do, so I'm unable to do so. So it's going to be a video for the morning, followed by maybe a stream in response to the press conference. That's the ideal. I don't know if I'll be back in time, but we'll have to see. I might be over on Jer's Big Up stream for the presser. I don't know, but we'll have to find out. Don't go. I kind of have to. But yeah, anyway. Hope you all enjoyed the stream. If you did, please whack a like on it. That always very, very genuinely helps the channel. And subscribing is wonderful as well. And it's free. And it's the one button that's down here. The one that says subscribe on it. If you press it, it makes a number go up. And that number makes me happy. But it also makes potential channel sponsors go, ooh, people watch this guy. Let's back him. Which ultimately is very, very, very important for the success of a YouTube channel. And it would be lovely to have you guys' support and push to make that happen a little bit more. Anyway. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all later. Toodaloo, amigos. Oh yeah, and channel memberships. It's $2.99 a month, and you get videos early, including the one that I'm about to record. Hey! Oh dear. And it also means that I can put more money into the channel, because, you know, if you invest in stuff, it does better. And that'd be appreciated. Anyway, toodaloo. Bye, guys. Ah.